Hello everyone, this is Damon with Easy Green Screen, and in this video I'm going to be discussing doing an extraction where somebody has dark brown hair with a lot of these flyaway strands of hair, and the image was shot against a darker blue screen. Now, the default extraction settings don't always work perfect for that situation, but there are some settings you can adjust to make the extraction look pretty good. And overall, I think this looks pretty well. I've already made some adjustments here, and I'll show you what I did to get these results. But first, I'm going to reset the extraction settings. And this Reset Settings button will apply the default extraction settings back to your image. And you can see that that looks pretty rough around the hair, and the color doesn't look really good either on the edges. And I'm going to show you first the original image. And you can see we've got darker hair here and a darker background, and that hair just kind of gets lost into that background. So that makes it a little bit difficult for Easy Green Screen to get it perfect with the default extraction settings. And we'll view that back against the color here. And also, before I do any changes, I'll mention that it's always best to make these adjustments when you're viewing against a solid color or against the background that you're going to be using. And if you are using a solid color, try to use something that is close in color and shade to the background that you're going to be using, because when you're blending the partial transparency on the edge of the hair, you're going to get the best results if you blend that to look the best in the color that you're going to be putting it into. So to start, I'm going to go into the key and mask settings. The first thing I'm going to do is this smart radius. I'm going to turn this up. With dark hair, you can usually turn that smart radius up pretty high. With blonde hair, you usually can't go as high, and sometimes with blonde hair it looks better off, and that's why the default is set to a lower radius. But with dark hair, you can usually use that setting pretty high. It still doesn't look good on the edge like we want it, but what I'm going to do is let's go in and view the mask, and I'll explain what this next adjustment does. I'm going to set this from blend mode to replace mode, and you can instantly see that it makes those areas blend better in those partial transparent areas where you have background showing through the hair. It makes that blend a lot better. What this is doing is it's applying the Photoshop Smart Radius, radius of 100, and it's applying that to the edge of where we had our hair mask selection. Now, if we have this in blend mode instead of replace mode, what it does is it takes Easy Green Screen's channel blending, and it creates a mask, and it adds those two masks together. So it's blending Easy Green Screen's channel blending mask with Photoshop's Smart Radius, so you're getting both added together. Now, with dark hair in particular on this image where the hair is getting lost into the screen, it's going to look much better using the replace mode. Now, there are different situations. For instance, with blonde hair, the blend often works better. And with blonde hair on green screen in particular, the blend looks better. What you have to watch out for in this replace mode is you can see a little bit of it down here, and maybe a little bit up here. It starts erasing into your image, but it's very, very subtle, and you'll never notice that in this image against the background. But with blonde hair in particular, it really likes to erase areas into your hair if you use this replace mode at a high radius. And that's why the default is set to blend and not replace. However, with dark hair against the blue screen, this replace mode often will look really, really good. And so let's go back to the color and view this against color. You can see that the hair now looks pretty good and it blends. These areas are really getting a good blend on the edge. However, the color doesn't look quite right. So let's go into our spill correction so I can explain here. I'm going to turn this all the way down. You can see with that spill correction turned all the way down, you've got the blue fringe to the hair. The software chose a value of 60 8. Let me get the right value in there. And so this is what the software chose. Now your initial thought when you look at this is maybe let's use some more spill correction. I'm just going to turn this up. It doesn't do a whole lot for us. And if I turn the spill color range up, that doesn't do much for us either. So I will explain what's going on here. Is in the original image, any areas that the hair turned blue, the software is able to correct for, but the transition areas right between the edge of the hair and the screen, those can desaturate because blue screen is different than green screen. Blue screen is typically about 180 degrees shifted on the color spectrum from the color of the hair. So what that means is when you get an equal mix of those colors, you can get color cancellation and the image can actually have desaturated areas, or grayscale areas that is. And that is in the original image, and it's really hard to see unless you zoom in at a pixel level, but you can get areas that are desaturated. And so what happens with Easy Green Screen is you can't target the desaturated areas and try to automatically add color back in, because if you do that, it's going to add color to areas like the eye whites, areas of the jersey here that are supposed to be neutral, maybe areas in teeth that are supposed to be neutral gray or white. Any areas that are neutral would get affected if we were to just add color back to neutral areas. So if you go back into this view, and that's what we're seeing, these areas are becoming neutral because of that blending between the blue and the hair. So what we do, instead of using the automated spill correction, we're going to go into the edge hair coloring. And I'm just going to start out with the blend opacity of 40%. You can instantly see that blended some color back in the hair, and the blending width is only set to 2 pixels here, and that's the number of pixels in from the edge where it blends color. And this is a dual mask extraction, so it's only blending this color into the area that we pre-selected around the hair before we did this dual mask extraction. I'm going to turn this width up to 25 pixels. You see it's starting to affect more of the hair and blend in a little bit further. And that actually looks pretty good. Now I'm going to show you that we can go into this change hair blending color, and if you're in CC, you'll get the eyedropper tool, and you can select a color, and we're changing the color here to blend the hair. If you're in CS5 or CS6, you're not going to have the eyedropper, but you can still come in here and change the color. And this is happening in color blend mode, so yeah, I'll just demonstrate here. If we change anywhere in the middle here, it's having an effect on the hue and saturation, and you can see that the hue and saturation is being affected, but the overall luminosity of the hair is not really being affected. So that's helping us preserve luminous detail. So I'm just going to set the hair color so that I think the blending looks pretty good and hit OK. Then also what we have is, if we want to change the brightness of the hair, depending on the background, if you have a really dark background, you might want to darken the edge of your hair because it might blend a little bit better. And in this image, I think that the darker hair actually gives it more contrast against this background. But depending on your background, you might want to change the color of the edge of your hair. Now, if you turn this up, you see that we're not getting as pronounced of an edge to the hair. And if we turn it up too high, we're starting to make that hair look too white on the edge. And so, as a general rule with darker hair, most often you want to darken that depending on your background. So in any case, I think that looks pretty good, and I think that blends pretty well. The next thing I'll show you here is, once you have the settings that you want, you can save those as a preset. So I'll just go in and call this blue screen dark hair. and I typically use the auto spill correction opacity. If you turn that off, it's going to use the exact spill correction opacity. If you leave that on, that will just let Easy Green Screen use what it thinks is best, and that's referring to the spill correction opacity here. So if I go back to the main menu now, I'm going to reset this again. And I'll now show you that since we have a preset here, if we're doing more than one image that requires these same settings, we just come in here to our preset, and then all you have to do is click that once and it's going to apply the settings and edge hair coloring that we saved in the preset. So that makes it really quick to extract more than one image with those same settings. And if you're using Chroma Key Lab, you can also tell it to use that preset. And if you record Easy Green Screen into an action, it's going to record with those settings you use, so it automatically applies those. Anyway, I hope you learned something, and if you're interested in Easy Green Screen and have never used it, please be sure to visit our website. That is easygreenscreen.com.